Okay, so we talked about in the first on Tuesday. Okay, we contrast the different two systems, the traditional costing versus the new approach, which is ABC. And we talked about the 4 steps, right? So this shows us how we are going to use ABC, right? How we are going to use to allocate overhead cost under ABC, and there are 4 steps, right? So then we have some specific examples. We ran through some examples step by step, I believe. So you have seen that why this is a better way to calculate the overhead cost. And we did compare the end result, right? If you compare the product based on the 2 different costing, you will see that the result can be quite different, right? So we came to the conclusion that ABC is better, provides more accurate information. Okay. So what's the benefit of ABC? Okay, what's the benefit of ABC? There are 3 primary benefits. First one, once we categorize the overhead cost into separate different cost pools, this allows us to get a better and more accurate product costing. And then the second one is leads to improved overhead cost control. Okay, so you have better control on the overhead cost. Why? Because now you can start looking into each cost pools, right? So you can focus on each cost pools rather than the big number. Supports better management decision, like I mentioned, right? Once you have good product information, right, you know that what's really cost me to manufacture this product, right? Given the current market situation, competition, am I profitable to make this product? Should I continue? Should I quit? Right? So that's the 3 primary benefits. Okay, so we'll talk each of the benefit a little bit in a little bit more details. Okay, so why we are saying that you have more cost pools, you can have more accurate product costing. Okay, the reason for that is once you have the separate cost pools, okay, you can have different cost drivers for each pool. And note that this cost driver will be the one that you select, will be the one that are correlate, right, with that cost. Okay, so remember, traditional costing, you only use one cost driver, right? So that might not be a good approximate, right? Maybe the correlation is not that strong, right? If you use only one cost driver to correlate with the entire amount of overhead cost, okay? So that correlation might not be strong. But now, since you subdivide this overhead cost into different cost pools, right? So now you can select different cost drivers that will better reflect the cost of each cost pool, right? So in this way, you are improving that correlation, right? You are improving the correlation between the cost driver you are using and the cost, okay? And how they are making the decision in terms of the cost drivers, okay? So basically, they classifying the different activities into 4 activity levels, okay? Into 4 activity levels. So then they can have a better product costing. So they call this different product level, okay, activity level, cost hierarchy, okay? So what do we mean by that? Okay, so for example, the first level, that's the lowest level, that's the unit level, okay? So this is the activity we're talking about that directly related to the product unit, okay? So for example, this carpenter, he's like drilling, right? He's drilling on a hole on the wood, right? and he's trimming the board, right, to make it. So he's working on this product, right? So the machine hours, those are the activity cost drivers, right? So that will be, so that will be related to the units level, right? How many machine hours you use to make this unit, right? Similarly, how many labor hours do you use to work on this unit? So these are the activities, machine hours, direct labor hours. These are the activity for the unit, right? At the unit level. So the next one would be the bench level activity. Okay, so for example, when you set up equipment, right? You set up equipment, you are processing a bunch of items, right? You are not only just doing one and then you are done, right? You set up the machine, right? The process for a bunch of productions coming, right? For example, you purchase materials, right? You purchase materials. You don't just order materials that is good enough for one product, right? You purchase a large amount of materials, right? Inventories for the production, okay? Materials handlings. Those are the activities that is related to the bench, right? That bench level. So next one would be the product level, okay? So for example, product design, right? Product design, okay? So this is the activity that is related to all the products, right? All these products, okay? So if you have a particular design for the house, right? And then you are gonna build like 100 houses like this, right? So you can see that the product design, that cost, right? That overhead cost will be related to all the product, right? To all the product. All the product will share that the cost of the product design, right? Okay, so engineering changes, similar ideas, okay? The next one would be facility level activities, okay? So you have a factory here, okay? You have a factory here. So let's say you make like 5 products, right, in the factory, right? So the factory cost, right? The factory cost will be related to all products, right? Not just one product, because all the products are made within the factory, okay? So for example, the factory depreciation, right? This depreciation, the building's depreciation, this overhead need to be allocated to all products, right? Not just one type of product, right? To all the product that is manufactured within the facility, right? So you can see that this ABC allows us to classify the activities in the 4 different levels. So therefore, there's a better cost allocation, right? Depending on how much use activity levels engaged by each product, okay? Does this make sense? Do you guys have any questions on this? Pretty straightforward. The 4 levels: unit, bench, product, facility, right?
I do have a question, I think. Sorry, can you go back to the previous slide? I just think I missed where we got to this.
This
Thank
one?
you. Okay, so this is like the 3rd bullet in that slide. Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, that's the cost hierarchy. Yeah.
Great.
Okay, so when we are doing some problems, we can see that sometimes we have a activity level machine hours. We have seen the setup, right? Machine setup, right? In the previous examples. And we have seen purchase orders, right? The number of purchase orders. Product design inspection, right? We have seen some inspections. So basically, in the midterm exams, you may see a question that there are different activities, right? Different activities, different cost drivers. Okay. Okay, so the second point is about improved overhead cost control, right? So I think it's not challenging to think about that all the companies will try to keep the cost low, right? And the overhead cost, how can you keep the overhead cost low, right? I'm not trying to say low. You don't want to waste your money, right? I'm saying that you just make sure that all the overhead costs that are there that are necessary, right? It's not unnecessary cost. So when you have this ABC costing system, you are able to recognize the activities, okay, in two categories. So value added versus non-value added activities, okay? So these are the two activities you are going to recognize. So what's the value added activity? So just from the on the surface, you can know that this activity is added value, right? So basically, if those activities increase the perceived value of a product or service, okay, so these are the value added activities, okay, also referred to as essential activities, right? So if you think about university as a service industry, right? So what I'm doing, right, this must be a value added activity, right? At least I hope so, right? So whatever I'm doing is a value added activities, right? So that would increase the perceived value of a product or service, right? So you will feel that you learned something from my class, right? So those are the value added activities, okay? So non-value added activities, so those are the activities, if eliminated, would not significantly change the perceived value of a product or service, also defined as non-essential activities. So what would be a non-essential activities in the university setting? Dan?
Would it be maybe a lunch that's offered to you?
Sorry, my internet.
Like if the university offered you lunch?
Oh, university offered you lunch. Okay. So so basically you feel that I'm coming here to learn knowledge, right? That's what I'm really care about. Here is not a restaurant. I'm not gonna evaluate on the food you are offering me, right? Okay, so let me take a look. Who else is there? Jimmy?
Hi, yeah, I was thinking about like off-campus, like events that happen outside of school time, that's not really linked to program-related studies.
Okay, so those maybe some of the social activities may not be that important, right? Some of them are important. Maybe, for example, for accountants, right? Sometimes university will organize activities like connection with the professionals, right? So it's important, right? As a student, you are connecting with the accounting professionals, right? So you can see through those meetings, you learn better about the career plan, right? Those kind of things. But other activities might not be that useful, may not that be important to you. Yeah.
Right. Oh, so like separating that out from like networking versus like just fun sort of, but like they hold value, but they're not going to, change your course outcomes, I suppose.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Good. Isabella.
I was thinking like club activities, so like the climbing club or like Rotaract or something like that.
Okay. Yeah. So those are probably in the university environment, right? If the perceived value of the service is really about your learning experience, if you focus on academic learning experience, so the other part of that might not be that important. Yeah, kind of like those kind of ideas. Thank you. Yeah, appreciate that. But you got the idea, right? What is value added and value non-value added activities? Okay. So here, let's take a look at the value added activities for a manufacturing company. So engineering design, right? Well, this must be very important, right? So if you are making something, right, you better have a blueprint, right? You better have a design first. Without design, you don't have the product, right? So engineering design, for sure, that adds the value, right? Machining, right? Machining, assembly, painting. These are all add value to that product, right? Right. So for painting, right? So if you don't paint it, right, versus you paint it, right? So you see the value, right? You know, there will be more value, right, after the product is painted. Okay. Service company. So for example, doctor performing a surgery, that must be value added. Okay. So of course, right, it's a good doctor, right? It must be a very good doctor. You know, if it's a bad doctor, of course, that's not a good activity. So performing surgeries, right? And the legal research services, like lawyer, right? Lawyers, okay? And the delivering packages, packaging, right? All these activities, these are the value added activities. Okay, I still see some hands up. Okay, just give me a second. Michaela?
Oh, sorry, I just forgot to take my hand down from the
Oh, that's
other
okay.
question.
Yeah, no problem. So in contrast, let's take a look at the non-value added activities. Okay. So for example, repairs of machines, right? Repairs of machines and the storage of inventory, moving of raw materials, assemblies and finished goods, building maintenance, inspection. Oops. Right. So for example, you go to Superstore, right? You have seen their staff, right? Sometimes they would move the locations, right? They would shift the product, the inventory locations, right? They are going to move, you know, these kind of items to that shelf, right? And then they move this watermelon, right, somewhere else, right? They do change the floor plan, right, in terms of the display. So does that increase the value of the food, right? So the watermelon was in location A, right? And now you move it to location B, right? Does that increase the value of the watermelon, right? Can you tell the customer saying that, guess what? Before it's $7, because I move it from location A now to location C, I'm gonna charge you $8. There's a $1 value increase, right? So that's not right, right? So by moving these watermelons around, right? Superstore probably have they are optimized their floor plan, right, to better attract customers, whatever the reason for that is, right? But it doesn't add value to that product, right? It doesn't add value to make it doesn't make the watermelon sweeter. Maybe when you move around, you make it even worse. I don't know. So you can see that moving raw materials or finished goods those are the non-value added activity, right? Inspections, right? Inspections. So let's say this is like people are making let's say they're making iPhones, right? And on the I don't know how they are doing it. I'm just making examples, right? So and then you have the inspections, right? Doesn't matter how many times you inspect the product, right? Does that add the value to that product, right? Does make the function better, right? Maybe you know the standard, right? You try to make sure all the iPhones will have the same standard, right? It's not lemons, right? But by going inspection, do you make it better? Do you make iPhone to be a better product, right? Probably not, right? Probably not. Okay. It's like I'm just thinking that if I signed on that iPhone, right? Because I'm nobody, therefore it doesn't add value, right? So I think I'm only ruined it, right? But if it's maybe who is the famous person? If it's maybe like Hollywood movie star, right? Signed on the iPhone, right? That's a value added activity. Probably you can sell that iPhone more, right? Because there's a signature of a famous celebrities, right? So you see what I'm saying, right? So you want to think about it. Is there a value added? Meryl? Do you have a question, Meryl? Hussein, you have a question?
Yes, and is it the same with the like what we see before, what we saw before, like for legal services? Like, what would the lawyer have different than the other?
So the service companies, okay. So here there are some examples, right? You are talking about lawyers, right? So maybe the receptionist, the does not add the value to that legal service, right? Because the quality of the legal service is provided by the lawyer, right?
Yeah.
But the receptionist is helping in terms of admin, right? But when we talk about the value of that product, it's really about the lawyer's service, right?
Yeah.
So here the reception is considered as non-value added, right? It doesn't
Right.
add value to that quality of that legal service, right?
Right.
It's important to run the business, right? Right. I'm not saying the things they are doing are not important, right? You can the law firm cannot run without the receptionist, right? It's very important.
It doesn't add.
Sorry, I can't. Sorry, what did you say?
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
can.
so yeah, as we said, like in the beginning, for legal services, like as you said, receptionist, like it doesn't add that more. Like people like never go to a lawyer because they're reception or something.
Yeah.
Like they go, yeah, for the lawyer itself.
Yeah.
Themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So exactly. Yeah. Okay. So here you can see that. So ordering supplies, right? Ordering supplies. This is not adding the value to the service you are providing. Traveling, right? If if I'm going to a client, I'm doing the auditing work, right? So the hours I'm traveling from my home, my job place, to the client's site, that travelings are non-value added activities, right? It's important, right? Because I have to drive there, right, before I can do the job, but it doesn't add a value. So it's only when you start working on the case, then that's the value added, right? So what this will be something you can think about it, right? When you think about it, there are different jobs, there are different jobs, right, in the market, right? And sometimes you complain that, I'm not making enough money, right? So then you have to ask yourself, what kind of activities you are doing, right? What kind of activities you are doing? Yesterday, I took my kids to the dental clinic, right? So they fixed some of the teeth. So I paid $1,000 for that, right? And there are different people working there. There's the doctor, right? So that's the person who is really doing the job. And there is the assistant, right? The doctor's dental assistant. And there are also the person who collecting money from me, the receptionist, right? So then you want to think about, well, why the doctor is making, lots of money, right? Why the doctor is making much more money than the receptionist, right? And the reason is how much value did you add to that activity, right? To that service. So you will hope that you will be the one, okay, adding a lot of value to whatever the things you are doing. So then you will be paid well. Okay, does that make sense? So eventually it's about the scales, right? Because only when you have scales, you can add a value, right? If you are the only one who have the skills, right? So then you will be paid a lot of money, right? If you don't have any skills, if lots of people can replace you, that's why you are not paid a lot, right? So therefore, it's smart for you guys to work hard now, right? To learn lots of knowledge, right? Improve your skills. So that's the only thing you can use, right? So to increase your own marketability, right? So you can get a good job, right? You can get paid, the salary you wish, right? So the market is fair. The market is very fair, okay? So this is the value-added activity, non-value activities. And we are going to take a look at the activity flow charts, okay? Activity flow charts. So here, this is a Heartland Manufacturing Company. This is their activity flow chart, okay? You can see from the left to the right, okay? So they started with receiving materials, they move them around, okay? Then they are going for the production. And then they set up the machine, the machining, right? They're working on the materials. There are some inspections to make sure everything is appropriate. And they move and wait. And then they assemble the different parts. And then they inspect and test to make sure everything is okay. And then you move to the storage. And then you put them for sale, right? And then they are going to be packed and to be shipped to the customers. So this is kind of the whole chain of the activities, right? From in their production activities. So you can see that in this long chain of activities, there are only 3 activities are value added. Okay, machining, assembly, and package and ship. Okay, all these other activities are non-value added. Okay, so the whole point here is they are going to try to reduce the amount of the time they spend on these non-value added activities. So you can see that in the current situation, this whole chain takes 44 days, okay? And they propose this will be reduced to 27 days, okay? From 44 days to 27 days, okay? So they want to reduce the non-value added time by 17 days, okay? So see, this is a very useful tool, right? Once you examine the activities in your production, you classify them into non-value versus value added, right? And then you want to see, okay, so now it takes 12 days to move and store the materials, right? 12 days. Maybe you can make it quicker, right? You want to make it 4 days, right? Okay, so this value added activities, you don't want to push this too hard, right? If you want to push this too hard, you are going to be sacrificed in terms of the quality, right? Okay, you're gonna give the machining enough, make sure they do their work. The assembly, right? You don't want to push them, right? If it takes 2 days, let them use the 2 days, right? If you make it 1 day, then they are in rush. They may make mistakes, right? But for the other parts, right, move materials to the production and the wait, right? Maybe this wait, right? Maybe what's the reason for the waiting, right? Why they have to wait, right? Maybe you should cut off that waiting time, right, by 1 day. Okay, and here is 14 days in the finished goods inventory. Why is 14 days? Can you, make it a little bit shorter, right? Maybe you don't have enough staff working here, right? To get them out quicker, sooner, right? Maybe that means I will send more staffs, right? To pack, to ship them, right? So how come they stay here for 14 days, right? So those are it's very useful, right? Once you start seeing the activity-based costing system, you start seeing these whole activities through different lens, right? Through the different level of the production, all through the value addition, right? Whether it's added value or not. Do we have any questions? Nima?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that. So for non-value added activities, they're still important to the company. It's just they're not that important to the customer, right? In a
Yes.
sense.
Yeah, it doesn't add value to the customer, right? It doesn't add value to the product, right? So, so for example, right? So you receive inspect materials, right? So that activity doesn't add value to that product, right? It's important, like they have to have this activity, but it doesn't add value to the product. So let's say you use lumber, right? You use lumber to make furniture, right? So the value of the furniture, right, would be like whatever the cost, whatever the price is, right? The value. So when you receive and inspect the materials, you just want to make sure that the lumber is appropriate for my product, right? I'm not using like a bad lumber. I'm not using the wrong lumber to do this product, right? But when doesn't matter how much time you inspect these materials, it doesn't add any value to the furniture, right? The value is only that lumber, the good lumber, right? The direct materials, right? But the inspection, right? The inspection doesn't add value to that product. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Dailin? Meryl?
Yeah, everything makes sense to me.
Okay, good. Okay.
Excuse me, I had a question. That's
Yeah.
Kaylee.
Yeah, Kaylee, go ahead. Yeah.
I was just wondering who exactly determines where these activities go under?
So the manager, right? So the decision makers, right? Like for example, this activity flow chart, this would be a good tool for the decision makers, right? And so the decision maker, the managers, they will come up with this information, yeah, and then they would examine, right, why it's take this much time, right? Like for this example, they are trying to reduce the time, right? They are trying to reduce the time for the production from the beginning to the end, right? So, and then they come up with this flow chart, and the goal for them is to try to reduce the amount of the time for that non-value added activities.
Okay, so they would provide this or something like this eventually to accounting, and then they would do like the financials with it, but it's not the accounting department that would determine any of this.
Yeah, so this one is not directly related to any numbers, financial numbers. So what? This is just a business process, right? This is just about how they do business, right? So the idea is they want to make this production quicker, right? So from the day they receive materials to the day that product is out, before it's 44 days, they feel that this is too long, right? They feel it's too long. They can do a better job to cut it by 17 days, right? And then they would analyze these activities using this flow chart, and they particularly point out these 3 activities that they can cut off the time on these 3 activities.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think I don't think this one is directly related to any financial numbers. It's mostly about the business process, right? And the business process is important, right? Because if you can do things quicker, right? So you can do more things, right? Right? So if you can, so here in 44 days, right? You make one product, suppose, but once you cut 17 days, so what happened is 88 days, you make two. After the proposed situation, you can make three, right? So right away, your productivity increased. Okay, so that's this one. Okay, so support better management decision. Okay, support better management decision, like I mentioned before, right? Should I have a new product? Should I stop the existing product, right? So those are really important. You need to rely on the product costings to make those decisions, okay? And also, you want to kind of have some benchmarks, right? You want to have some benchmarks against other companies, right, in the industry. For example, what are the performance standard? What is the profit margin, right? What's the profit margin for my product, right? Not only I'm making money, but how much I'm making, right, on the product, right? So you probably know about your peers, right? You know your competitors. So it's really important that this kind of information will provide you some kind of benchmark, okay? Okay, let's take a look at this question. An appropriate facility level cost driver for heating cost. Facility level, okay? Okay, let's see. Karen? What's your answer, Karen?
Sorry, for the facility level,
Yeah.
is that going back to the cost analysis one, or not cost analysis? The factory level, is that where we're going?
What's your answer for this question?
I would say C, the floor space.
Okay, thank you. Thomas?
I would say
Thomas?
floor space as well.
Floor space. Okay, and Long?
That's what I got.
My answer is C, force play. So force play, yeah.
Okay, Kate?
I would say C as well.
Okay. Kate Chen?
C.
Ruben?
C.
Mario?
C as well, floor space.
Fatima?
I think it's floor space as well.
Xudong?
C. Floor space.
James?
C. Floor space.
Okay, so I have to agree with you. So it's C. Okay, it's C. Number 5. Which of the following activity is value added? So if you have already answered, please have your hands down. I'm only calling names that haven't answered the question yet. Erin?
I think it's C.
Okay, Megan?
I say C as well.
Okay, I'm only calling students who haven't answered. Tammy?
Value added, I would say moving parts for machines. Okay, I was going to say D, but I'm not sure of A. So
Okay. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So Maddie?
I was thinking C, shaping a piece of metal.
Okay. Rag?
It's C, shaping a piece of metal on a lathe.
Rylan?
I'm gonna go with C as well.
Okay. Janaya?
I was saying C as well.
Okay. Okay, again, I have to agree with you. So I think it's C. Oops, where's, yeah, it's C, yeah. Okay, good job. So I think you guys all did a good job. So you understand all these concepts. That's good. Okay, what are the limitations? How are we doing with time? Okay, what are the limitations of the ABC? So we have done all the calculations in the first lecture. Okay, so this lecture is kind of fluffy stuff, right? You know, what's the benefit? What are the limitations? So it's more about conceptual, okay? So I may disappoint you if you like numbers. But so what is the limitations of ABC? You know, you can see that, right? You have to do a lot of you have to do a lot of work, right? Up front, right? You have to figure out, you know, all these activities, right? What other activities are, and you want to figure out what are the cost drivers. You have to pick up those activities that are highly correlated with the cost, right? And then the different levels, right? Maybe the product level, bench level, unit level, and factory level, right? And you want to figure out, right, what are the value added, non-value added, right? So depending on how big the business is, this may take a lot of time, right? Maybe take a lot of time. There's a cost, right? Maybe you have to hire some consultants to do this for you, right? If the manager cannot do it on their own, okay? So this is not perfect, right? The allocation, sometimes you just don't have a good cost driver, right? Sometimes, you know, you just cannot find a good cost driver, right? So it's still not perfect, right? There are still maybe some arbitrary allocations, right? But it's definitely better that you have just one big number, right? Just have one big number. So what would be the conditions that you can use ABC, right? Activity-based costing? So here are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is kind of the 5 situations, like product line differ greatly in volume and manufacturer complexity, right? So maybe one product, you only need 2 hours machine hours, right? The other product, you need 6 machine hours, right? So the product line, they are quite different, right? The manufacturing complexities, right? So one product may require, you know, 4 or 5 activities, right? It's very, very complex. And the other product may only need 1 activities, right? So in this case, the way how you allocate the overhead, the ABC is more appropriate, okay? Because you are going by the cost pools, right? Product lines are numerous, diverse, require different degrees of support service, right? So again, this support service would be the source of the overhead cost, right? Okay, so if one production line need more service, right, support service, versus another production line need only minimum support service. So it's only fair when you assign that overhead cost accordingly, right? Depending on the degree of that, the usage, right? And then the overhead costs are a significant portion of total cost, right? So if total cost of a product is $100, if direct material is $10, direct labor is $10, so overhead is $80. So we are saying overhead cost is 80% of the total cost. That's quite significant. You want to make sure that, right? You want to make sure that this number is reliable. You want to make sure that this number is accurate because it's a significant portion of the total cost, right? Therefore, it's important that you use ABC, right? Let's say this overhead cost is only 5% of your total cost, right? It's not significant. Even if you number off a little bit, right? Maybe your total cost does not off too much, right? Eventually, you care about your product cost is the total cost, right? Including direct materials, direct labor, and overhead, right? If overhead is only a small portion of your total cost, right? Then maybe it's not that important to have this number very accurate, right? Again, this is the cost benefit analysis, right? So, you know, you can use ABC to get a more accurate overhead allocation, but the cost is upfront is a lot, right? It's a balance, right? So the whole point here is if overhead cost is a significant proportion of the total cost, it's probably worth your effort, right? To go with ABC, right? To get this number accurate. Significant change in manufacturing process or number of products, right? Again, you know, you have different number of products, right? Maybe you have different production design, right? And you order different, the demand of the product is different in the market. When you order them in different benches, right? You know, each bench is.
A little bit of homework to do, but I'm gonna go to Jazz Jam tonight at 8. Obviously, you have lots.
Each benches may have different level of the units, right? So, you know, in those cases, right, it's important that you have separate cost pools. Managers ignore data from existing system and instead use bootleg costing data, okay? So I'm not sure what he's talking about. Managers ignore data from existing system and instead using bootleg costing data. I'm not sure.
I think
Does
it's
anyone
like
know?
incorrect. I think he means like incorrect data instead of the existing system data.
So basically, this manager is not really using the system, right? They're not really using the number in the systems.
Yeah, I think that's what it means.
So if that's the case, ABC doesn't help, right? ABC is the system. If you just ignore the data from the system, doesn't matter you use traditional. Doesn't matter you use traditional or you use you know, ABC, right? If you just want to use your own guess, right? Your own intuition. So it doesn't matter which systems they're using. Okay, so I'm not sure about this point. Okay, but you can see that. So basically, if there's operation having lots of product, different product, okay, and if the overhead cost is significant relative to the total cost, that's the case. You need to go with the ABC. The benefit will be justified. Okay. You know, even though there are some upfront costs, right? Maybe you gain the benefit. Okay, here, let's take a look at this question. The presence of any of the following factors would suggest a switch to ABC except okay, let's see. I only call the people who haven't answered questions, okay? If you answered already, I will not call name. Anyone who haven't answered? So you can see that I'm really helping you guys out, right? With participation, okay? So hopefully, I know you are nervous before the midterm exam. So hopefully by by these easy participation marks. I'm trying to help you a little bit. Florence?
It's B.
B, okay, B, yeah. Okay, that's good. All the other students, you have answered already, so. Okay, yeah, the answer is, oops. The answer is B, okay? So when the overhead cost constitute a minor portion of the total cost, I spent quite a bit of time talking about this, right? So if the overhead cost is only a small portion, so maybe it's less important to get it correct, right? Again, it's about the cost and the benefit, right? Okay. So we have focused on the manufacturing industry. What about the service industry? What about the service industry? Okay, so it's quite similar to manufacturing firms. Okay, so the goal is to identify the key cost generation activities and keep track of the quantity of activities performed for each service provided. Okay, so here they are using a little bit different word, right? They are using this called cost generation activity. Maybe try to be distinguished from the manufacturing company. Okay, so similar approach. You identify these activities and what are the cost pools and what are the cost drivers. Okay, and then you figured out the what are the value added versus non-value added activities. And your goal is to reduce and or eliminate the non-value added activities, right? What are the major difficulties when you use ABC? Okay, so when the overhead costs are company-wide cost, okay, the CEO's salary, right? There is only one CEO for a company, right? The CEO's salary, and there's the CFO, right? This is all like a big cost, right? Overhead cost. So those company-wide overhead cost, okay, sometimes they cannot be directly traced to specific services. Okay, so it's really hard to trace the overhead costs that are company-wide to specific services. Okay, so what would be a good example? So for accounting companies, right? For accounting companies, now you think about, you know, they have a CEO, right? And then they have VP production, right? And the VP production, they will have different regions, maybe like West, right? And West Ontario, right? And the Atlantic, right? They have different regions if it's a national firm. And each region, they also have the leaders, the regional partners, right? So you think about all these senior level admin people, right? How are you going to allocate their salaries to the different services, right? So they are not doing one particular service. They may have, their job is to have the strategy, right? How they can expand the local market, right? To attract more services, right? How can they improve the productivity of the firms, right? So it's really hard to trace their effort, right? How much hours you spend in a year and how many hours, how many minutes you spend to a specific services, right? So in the sense that the allocation of this cost will be still quite rough, right? It will be still quite rough. Okay, so this is one example, okay, for the service industry. This example is under the traditional costing, okay, traditional costing. So we have revenue, 4 million, direct labor, 1.2 million, and the predetermined overhead rate is 50% of the direct labor cost. So direct labor is 1.2 million. The overhead rate is 50% of the direct labor. So therefore here 1.2 million, 50%, that's 600,000. Okay, so there's no direct materials. Why? Why there's no direct materials? Anyone know? Why there's no direct materials here?
Spicy and they have flaming on them.
Oh my God.
Elisa.
Jimmy, why there's no direct material?
Did you say Janie? Sorry, I couldn't hear.
Because it's service industry.
Okay, yeah, because this is a service industry. Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, my internet connection is not very good, right? Today?
Maybe it's mine.
Okay. So
No, you're kind of breaking up a bit. Yeah.
okay. I'm not sure if it's because of my office location. So I get a technician coming to boost up the signal of the Wi-Fi. Yeah. Okay. So hopefully next week it will be better. Yeah. So there's no direct materials because this is a service, right? For some service companies they may need materials, but in this example there's no materials. So this together, the cost is 1.2 plus 600, so 1.8. So operating income is 2.2, right? So this is kind of for the traditional costing. So let's take a look at the here, okay? What is the overhead applied? So overhead rate is 50%, and the direct labor is 140,000. So what is the overhead we are applying here? $50% of direct labor cost.
$70,000.
70,000.
70,000, yeah, right. So because 50% of 140, 70, right? So then this would be together 210,000. Operating income is 50,000. 50,000, right? So this is pretty straightforward, right? Under the traditional costing system. Okay. And here is under example for the ABC costing system. Okay. So here, the overhead, okay, total is estimated to be 600,000, but they identified 3 cost generating activities. Okay, admin, customer development, and the recruiting and the training. And they also identify the cost driver, number of partner hours, and the revenue billed, and the direct professional hours, okay, for each of the activity. And so then they allocate this to the different cost pools, right? They allocate the total overhead, 600,000, into the 3 cost pools. And they also estimated the use of the cost driver for each pool. And then they use the step 3, the division. I use this number, the 3rd column divided by the 4th column. You figured out what's the activity overhead rate, right? And then depending on the usage of the activity for that service, you use the step 4 multiplication. So then you figured out what's the cost assigned. So you can see this is very similar to the manufacturing company, right? This process is very similar to the one on Tuesday we have done together, right? For the manufacturing company. Okay, so when you compare these 2 traditional costing, this is the one we have seen, okay? You helped me 70, you said 50% of 140,000, 70,000, and your income is 50, and then the margin, you will be like 50 divided by 260, so that's the 19.2%. So what this information tells you is that under traditional costing, the profit margin for this product, the service, is 19.2%. So let's take a look at ABC. For ABC, we figured out this number should be 557,200. This number is here. Did you see? 57,200. We calculated this number. Okay. And then my total expenses is this together, 197,200. My operating income is higher, 62,800. And my profit margin is actually higher, 24.2%. Okay, so you can see that, you know, for this is the one contrast between the two costing for the service industries, right? You can see that's quite significant, right? 5% difference. We are speaking of profit margin, right? Okay. Oops. Okay, this question. Activity-based costing has been found to be useful in each of the following service industries, except the answer is D. Okay, so it can be useful in all these industries. Okay, all these service industries. ABC can be useful in all these different service industries. Okay. Okay, I think this is the last slide. Again, today is very fluffy stuff. The calculation has all, we have learned all the calculations on Tuesday. So for your assignment, okay, there are some calculations, okay? So I told you to do the case 5.58. We only have 10 minutes left. So I won't have enough time to finish the whole thing. So what I'm gonna do is I will record a video tonight, okay? So that you don't have to find the part of it here and the part of elsewhere. So I'm going to make one video, so it's easy for you to find it, okay? Tonight, I will post it. So it's relevant to the assignment, okay? The assignment number 4. So I will do that tonight. Make sure now you have the whole weekend, right? You are going to prepare for the midterm exam, okay? Take it seriously. The calculation questions, I have 20 versions, okay? So don't count on, you know, maybe just ask your friends, right? You know, I absolutely don't like that. And each section has its own questions. So we have 4 sections. We all have different exams, okay? So make sure, and in my exam, one of the big questions, I spent some time, so I made 20 versions just because for this class size. The whole point is everyone has to earn your grade, your mark through your own effort, right? It's unfair for those hardworking students, right? They worked really hard to earn their grade, but other students, if they just cheat, right? They just copy their friend's answer. It's so unfair, right? So, and the fairness is the most important principle, right? And integrity, academic integrity is the most important things. University, you know, they are really holding strong onto that principle, right? So make sure, you know, previously some students copy another version's answer to answer. So, you know, there are consequences, right? So make sure you study, right? If you trust me, if you put your effort, the questions are not that hard, right? But if you don't put your effort, then maybe it's very challenging, okay? I think you guys should be okay because you come to a lecture all the time, right? You should be okay, yeah. So yeah, so if you have question, stay. Otherwise, class is dismissed, and I will work on the video for the case 5.58. Yeah.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.